If you've ever had a strange or creepy paranormal experience, consider sending it my way. Go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. Hey everyone. I wanted to share a creepy experience that happened to me about a year ago when I moved into an old apartment with my brother and a friend for school. In one of the first weeks there, I had a terrifying episode of sleep paralysis. It's not something that happens often to me, maybe a few times before, but this particular incident was by far the scariest. Picture this. My room had a queen-sized bed right in the middle. To the right, there was a huge built-in wardrobe covering the entire wall and the door that led to the hallway. To the left, there was a window that I usually left open at night because I enjoy waking up to the morning sun. I mention all this to set the scene. During this episode, I was sleeping on my side facing the open window. The night was clear and the moonlight streamed in. The moment I opened my eyes, I felt this overwhelming sense of being trapped. And there it was, right in front of me, hovering and looking down. A man, tall, and completely dressed in white, with a wide-brimmed hat that caught my attention. I couldn't see his face. It was obscured in shadows. He wore a white dress jacket, shirt, gloves, and the distinctive hat. Initially, he didn't move or say anything, just floated there staring at the floor of my room. Then, suddenly, he started rapidly listing animated movies. It might sound bizarre, but it freaked me out. I couldn't wake up, and I was seeing him clearly in my room. The Little Mermaid, Snow White, Mulan, The Little Mermaid, Snow White, Mulan, repeating without pause, until he sharply turned his head and locked eyes with me. And that's when I screamed with all my might to wake up my brother, managed to move, turned on the light with my heart racing and almost in tears. I hesitated to tell my brother or roommate initially, feeling embarrassed and not wanting to scare them. However, 2 days later, while chatting after dinner, I spilled the beans. My brother's reaction left us both completely spooked. Fast forward to 6 months ago, during the summer, when my brother had a bizarre encounter. We live in an area with a lot of trees, minimal nighttime activity, and dim lighting. As he was driving home calmly, about 30 seconds from our house, he saw a man at the stop sign, tall and dressed entirely in white, with a broad-brimmed hat. It seemed odd, like he'd come from a costume party. What freaked him out was that as he approached the stop sign, the man raised his hand, signaling him to stop. Despite being in a car, my brother felt a chill and intense fear, accelerating and parking at home while nervously looking back, afraid the man might follow him. He kept this to himself, thinking it might be a crazy person or his imagination. It wasn't until I described the man that he revealed seeing him months earlier in our town. I've searched online, but it seems like no one else has encountered him. If anyone has seen or knows anything, please, share your information. The story was requested of me to post by my friend, who experiences a ton of paranormal stuff. This was written by her, not myself. This happened to me when I was the age range of 6 to 7. This was when I used to live in Texas. Houston is my old hometown. My parents weren't very well in money around that time, and the area around our old home was often known as a dangerous area. Usually people would die near my neighborhood because of the shootings occurring. However, unfortunately, my house was haunted. The cabinets would open by themselves, things would go flying off the counter, and many other situations that happened inside of that house. One day I was in my room, playing with my toys and minding my business, until I decided that I would go visit my mom downstairs for something. When I tried to open the door, it wouldn't open, and I noticed that it was locked. Of course, I started panicking, trying to unlock it, but it wouldn't unlock. And I was starting to get scared because I felt something dangerous was inside the room with me, keeping me inside. I was banging on the door and crying for my mom when I turned my head around because I felt something watching me. I had a bunch of dolls on a shelf in my room, and all of their heads were turned towards my direction, and I started hearing a slight whispering from my closet. I was banging on my door more, and my mom heard me scream. She rushed up the stairs immediately asking if I was okay and to open the door for her. I was telling her that I couldn't, that something was keeping me in and that I couldn't get out of the room. She was trying to kick open the door, but unfortunately was unsuccessful. And that's when my dad came home from work, and my mom heard him and then ran down the stairs to get him. She then told him what was happening. As soon as my father heard what was happening from my mom, he ran up the stairs and told me to stand away from the door. And when I stepped away, I heard him banging and trying to pry the door open. It took a few tries, and he finally got the annoying door to open for him. They both rushed inside, asking if I was alright and what had happened, and I was telling them that I was hearing strange noises and sounds coming from inside the closet in my room, and then proceeded to point over to where the dolls were, and tried to explain the fact that their heads were all turned towards my direction. Afterwards, they made sure to leave that door open at all times, and told me to never lock the door again. So, I live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my husband and cat. We've been living here for a little over a year now, and in the past we've experienced some unexplainable phenomena. The most common being doors being opened after we've shut them. We shut a door, we leave or walk away and come back and the door is fully opened. We've also noticed heaters being turned on and neither of us turning them on. We've brushed a lot of this off as we do have a cat, and so we're both ADDs, so we figure maybe we just forgot about opening the doors. But the more it happens, the more we question it, because all of our doors have doorknobs, so it's not like she can grab them and twist them. And we might forget things from time to time, but not as often as we've been noticing things. I've had it happen a couple of times where I'm showering, and I hear the door open, but I look and it's shut. I've also experienced the door opening while I'm in the shower and nobody is there. The apartment community is older, but the vintage magic tricks that my husband collects could be even older than that. I told my husband the other day that if there is a spirit in the apartment, it's probably from his vintage magic trick collection. We joke about it from time to time. I don't know if spirits can really attach themselves to inanimate objects like they do in The Conjuring or not. If they could, you would think they would be generalized to where the magic tricks are located. But all of the instances have been throughout the apartment. Anyways, the reason I'm posting this is because this morning, my husband woke me up early and asked what I wanted. I didn't understand what he meant because I was asleep, and he said that he heard me say his name. Later in the morning, he asked me if I remembered saying his name at all. I told him that I might have been sleep-talking, but I don't usually talk in my sleep. Actually, I don't think I ever have. At least nobody has ever said anything about it. I decided to look into spirits mimicking people, and I found here on good old Reddit that this is actually pretty common. If that was a spirit, what does it mean if a spirit is mimicking you? Should we look further into this, or am I being dramatic? I don't really know, but I don't feel scared or concerned by it. When I was in high school, my English teacher took a group of students, approximately 6 to 10, myself included, to see the Crosset ghost light. Legend has it, this is the ghost of a railroad worker that was decapitated and is still searching for his head. Down a dirt road, over a hill, past a small line of trees, in the deep dark of rural Arkansas, you summon this ghost by flashing your headlights 3 times and then sit quietly in the dark. There, the faint flicker among the trees, the green light swung back and forth. The ghostly lantern emerged onto the road and slowly swung towards our van. Closer and closer, the specter came and someone yelled, "Go!" My teacher floored it. The light vanished and we shot out of there. But not before I saw a shadowy figure. It seemed to be a man crouched or sitting by the trees. He appeared to be wearing a high-collared jacket. Now, you may be thinking, oh, he's obviously the person creating the spooky sightings, or he was carrying the lantern. First, when my teacher sped away, we had driven through where the lantern had been seconds before. Second, the man/shadowy figure did not have a head. For those curious, my teacher and I both saw the headless shadow man crouching by the trees. So, for any adventurous souls, if you go to see the Crosset ghost, peer among the trees and maybe you will be lucky, or unlucky enough, to see the poor headless ghost too. Back in October of 2013, when I was 33 years old, I was living in an apartment called Treetop Lodge in Overland Park, Kansas. Hey, I know where that is. One day during that month, I was on the computer surfing the net as usual, and all of a sudden I heard this loud guttural growl in the living room by the TV, which was 15 feet away from where I was. I looked over there and I thought, what was that? A couple of minutes later, I heard the growl again, and it was even louder. I went over by the TV and searched everywhere in that area. I even went outside to see if I would hear that sound again, but there was nothing, and I couldn't find any rational explanation for it. Fast forward to around February or March of 2016 when I was 35, and I was living in another apartment called Hampton Woods in Shawnee, Kansas. I was having a dream one morning, and I was in a mobile home that I used to live in when I was a kid. I'm waking up and I see a lady that I went to Christian school with. I was in the bedroom towards the back of the mobile home on the left side. From what I understood, this lady I went to school with was into the occult, and I could even see people in the kitchen and living room doing drugs, smoking, drinking, and doing occult-like practices. All of a sudden, I end up outside, and the mobile that I lived in when I was a kid was nowhere to be found. I end up at this shelter-like place where there are several TVs and people are sleeping in sleeping bags. For some reason, I knew my older brother was in there sleeping in a sleeping bag. I go and call his name, and I look over by a TV, and all of a sudden I hear the most hideous guttural growl I have ever heard. It scared me so much that I jumped out of my dream, jumped off the bed, and flew into the living room. It scared the hell out of me, and was probably my most scariest experience that I have ever had. Firstly, I would love to thank you for posting my story about my sister Sherry. I cried listening to you tell it. 10 out of 10 will always recommend. Thank you very much. This is the funniest of the paranormal experiences that we've had with her. It doesn't always have to be scary. My BFF bought me the perfect journal to help me in between therapy sessions, and there was a page that resonates still today. They also sold t-shirts with quotes from the journal. One of them said, "I will not rest in peace, I will haunt in retribution." So, of course, he bought me that too. That's my sister to a T. After she passed, our side of the family found out an awful thing about my ex-brother-in-law. While Cher was near the end, he was cheating on her. He had bought her a comfy CRV to get Cher to her appointments. She never got the chance to drive it. On the second Christmas, we went to Mom's without him. He soon moved the woman he was cheating on Cher with to the house. Then he gave her that car. Then they removed all of Cher's pictures and changed everything. Sherry was so house-proud. Her home always looked like a page from Better Homes and Gardens. After all that, now Cher had absolutely had it and was ready for retribution. My mom and Cher had been feeding a literal pack of stray cats and letting them stay warm in the garage through the winter. Mom adopted her favorite, of course. We got a call from, I believe, my nephew Matt. There had been an incident the previous night. Let me tell you how we feel it all happened. One of the stray cats got the neighbor's pit bull to chase him. We believe Cher told the cats to do it. They all loved her dearly. The pit bull was then told by Cher to attack her car in the driveway, so it ripped the license plate right off and somehow found a gas line. Riddle me this: how did that dog know where the gas line was? This, of course, freaked them out, and of course his now fiancé couldn't drive it until my brother-in-law could order the parts to fix it. Of course, my mother absolutely believed Cher set the whole thing up. Then the phone tree began. We each called one another and had our first good laugh in a long time. We all felt like, you go Cher, now what's next? So, yes, sometimes the paranormal can be funny. It depends on who's doing the haunting and retribution, I guess. Okay, so they might not be as scary as others, but here we go. When I was around 8, my cousins and I were playing outside. Now, mind you, the house we were at was my younger cousin's house, and she lived in the middle of nowhere. The nearest neighbors were 30 minutes away. Anyways, we were playing in the bouncy house, and I heard a few children laugh, but I didn't say anything because I thought I was overhearing things. My cousins then asked me to turn off the bouncy house because they thought it would be fun once it was off. I don't know, we were bored. So I did. And that's when they started to scream at me to turn it on. Mind you, I had barely turned it off. I asked what was wrong, and they told me they heard children screaming at them to stop. They looked scared and shaken up, so we went inside. Before going inside the house, we all felt as if we were being watched. Second story. I was around 15 and my friend was throwing a sleepover party for her birthday. She had 2 very protective dogs. This will be important. We went over and had fun, and that's when she told us that her house was haunted, and that they play this game where they'll play hide and seek in the dark. It was about 15 of us in her house. We started to tell us the weird things that would happen and even showed us pictures. I didn't believe her, or at least I didn't want to believe her. Once it was 3 a.m., we were all sitting down in the living room by her door. She had 2 living rooms. We were just eating snacks when the lights turned off. We had flashlights with us because we were going to start telling scary stories, and we heard someone running in the 2nd floor. And then we saw a shadowy figure coming down the stairs. We all froze, but then ignore it. The next morning, we're hanging out, and she went upstairs to grab a few more blankets, when suddenly the atmosphere felt weird. My other friend and I looked at each other, and I swear to you all, Nobody else was moving except us. My friend who went upstairs fell down the staircase, and we were the only ones to react. The dogs didn't get up, and the rest of the group had their eyes on the TV. After a moment, our friends asked us why the host was on the floor and why did we look panicked. We told them that she fell. I'd had enough and went home. Once I went home, I went straight to bed, but before going to bed, I heard something running around outside of my room, and I swear I heard knocking on all four sides of my bedroom. Hello, Raven. I just wanted to tell you about this. It just happened to me. Today is Wednesday the 28th of 2024. I believe this was February. It was almost 12 o'clock noon. I was going through some cassette tapes that my brother-in-law and I are on, from a band that we played together back in 1992. I'm trying to put some song tracks together for his wife. He passed away this January 11th. She wants some songs for his celebration of life in March. There will be 12 bands playing, but she wants to have some songs that he and I did. There was a song that we did called Wild Wild West. I can't recall what band did it. I closed some things up to get some lunch. I sat down and turned on the TV, and a commercial was on, and that song was playing for the commercial. I told my wife about it, and she couldn't believe it either. I'm beginning to feel like something is watching me because that is just going way beyond coincidence. I kind of wondered if my brother-in-law had anything to do with it. I'm just really amazed, shocked, and freaked out. I hadn't heard that song for over 30 years, and then to hear it twice in less than half an hour? Hi, Raven. I've been listening to you on YouTube for quite a while now. Thank you for doing what you do. Of course, thank you. This happened last week. So I went to the car wash to wash my car and vacuum it out. I've been wearing the same crucifix around my neck for over 20 years. Strangely enough, I got it at a garage sale over 20 years ago, and it called to me, so I've been wearing it ever since. At the car wash while I was vacuuming, my crucifix fell off my neck with the chain, and it got sucked up into the vacuum. As I saw the last bit of it going into the vacuum, I yelled out, "No!" But it was too late. It was gone. I was pretty devastated. But then I kept thinking, maybe I just took it off and put it in my purse, even though I clearly saw it get sucked up into the vacuum. I emptied my purse over 3 times. Turned it upside down, shook it, emptied every zipped up section just to make sure it wasn't in there, thinking maybe I put it in there. It was nowhere to be found. The first night I slept without it, I had a nightmare. When I woke up, I was really bothered, and I knew it was because I wasn't wearing my crucifix. I prayed that it would somehow come back to me, knowing that having had it for so long, I had grown that attached to it. Fast forward 3 days and I'm digging in my purse looking for my pen to write some stuff down. As I pulled out my pen, my crucifix came out with it, chain and all, wrapped around the pen. I had clearly emptied my purse on 3 occasions looking for it, and it simply was not there. After having prayed that it would come back to me somehow, but not really believing it would, it actually did come back to me. I don't know how this is possible, but I'm a true believer in God and miracles, and this to me was one of those small miracles that God just knew I needed. I grew up strict Catholic, but no longer attend church. But now I do know that God is always listening. I wonder if anything like this has happened to anyone else. Thank you again, Raven, and blessings to you and all of your listeners. I had to make up some time, so I opted to stay late at my desk and finish up some work. I'm only here making up time because I had to leave my office during the day for an event for my kid at school. About 45 minutes ago, the last person who stayed late left the office and I saw him walk out. No one else has come in and there is no one else here. About 30 minutes ago, I heard a loud bang come from upstairs. It sounded like metal pipes hitting together hard. It kind of startled me as I thought something fell, so I went upstairs to see what might have fallen over and nothing. I looked out from the upstairs window and the parking lot is empty, except for my car. I called out to ask if anyone was still here that I might have missed. No one. Our office isn't open to the public, and you need a key card to enter. Shortly after that, I came back to my desk and worked on a file, and I heard another noise. This time, it sounded like something was dragging a broomstick across a wall, but there was still no one there. We have motion-sensored lights, so all the lights upstairs were now off. Most of the lights downstairs are off except for my office. Just before I got on here and had to tell someone, I heard a ding, like some kind of cash register dinging. But we don't have anything that sounds like that here. After I heard the ding, I saw the light upstairs come back on. Those lights are only triggered by humans. Not mice, cats, dogs, or the office Roomba would trigger it. And just now as I'm writing this, another set of lights just came on closer to the office conference room. I do not know what is going on here. Back in my mid to late 20s, my mother had a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses come over to do a Bible study with her. They would read one verse and tell her what it means. Many times she would say no, if you read the ones before and after, it means something different. She ended up asking them not to come back. In back of the garage, there was a spare room that was added on before they bought the place. It was my dad's office, and at the time he was big into CB and ham radios. There was a large wooden desk, and at this time a large metal coffee can full of screws, bolts, nuts, and nails, and other. That can, I didn't see it, but it jumped, flew off the desk, and landed about 3 feet from the desk. If it had just fallen off and rolled to that spot, there would have been a trail of items from where it would have hit the ground to where it stopped. But there wasn't any. Another time, my sister's 3 young kids brought in a hose to make an indoor pool. That was the only time they ever tried anything like that. My mom had the house blessed and had sage burned to smoke the inside and outside around the house. Nothing like that happened after. Another one of my sister's sons was sleeping in his bed, but when my sister went to check on him, the lower half of his body was off the bed. As in, part of his rear end was off the bed, yet his whole body was still flat, like his whole body was still lying on the bed. My father died of a heart attack a couple of months before I turned 17. He was in the hospital for about a week. He didn't want me to see him there as a weak, older man. He was 55 at the time, so I never got to say goodbye or that I loved him before he passed. Several years later, my mom was seeing a man named George, and his youngest, Wayne, was living with us. I had a vivid dream about my father and Wayne, who he had never met. Dad told me that I've always loved you more than Wayne, or the most. Not sure. I told him that I loved him, and we hugged. Then I woke up crying. That was the best dream ever. Back in high school, I used to have a '64 Dodge Dart, the 225 slant 6-engine, and 3-speed push-button transmission on the dash. I loved that car, and I would always want to drive my friends anywhere we went in it. The driver door I never had to lock, even though I could open the door no problem. Others could not open it, and it was unlocked. At one time, a person tried to break into my car but couldn't, and then it was unlocked. I showed my friends by just opening the door. They did get the little chrome ring around the trunk lock off. Another interesting thing is the passenger door. It did not matter how well you closed the door, as long as you didn't cuss or disrespect the car, you were fine. If you did though, the door would suddenly open up on you. In fact, my friend almost fell out of the car, as it did that while going left in a parking lot one time. If you shut it soft or hard and push on it to check if it's closed, but then disrespected the car, it would open. I've been listening to your stories, and they've brought back some memories that I have forgotten. So that, my friends, was a collection of some paranormal experience stories. Paranormal stories, ghost stories, haunting stories, random stories that are paranormal in nature, kind of spreading out the branches of paranormal to some extent, I guess. Kind of just accepting stories that aren't just ghosts or haunting to not really supplement, but to kind of, I don't know, I guess encompass more interesting and strange things of the paranormal world. So, yeah. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I know these stories were shorter. I will say that of the 13 stories in the video, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them were submitted directly to me, so that would, to some extent, mean that stories from listeners are shorter. They are, typically. At least whenever it comes to, like, paranormal things or glitches, for some reason. Other stories people kind of go on for a long time, but paranormal ones typically end up being shorter. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe people don't know that 200 words is about a minute. A little more than. So, if you ever write me a story, try to make it more than 200 words. Try to make it 600 if you can. I know it's kind of weird, but anyways, I'm rambling. Yeah, paranormal stories. Thank you to everyone who submitted their story to me, or those of you who let me use their stories on Reddit. Appreciate you. You are great. You are amazing. You're the best. Yeah. If you like the video, please consider hitting the thumbs up button. If you like the content, consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you like to talk to me, consider hitting the comment button down below the video. You can also join Patreon or memberships, where if you would like early access, you can get it. You can also leave a super thanks, which is just you leaving a tip to the channel, a bit of a donation, if you will. Of course, that's only if you would like to do so. Never expected, but always appreciated. Yeah. All that said, friends, I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Hope you're having a great week so far. Hope I do see you again here very soon. But until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, much love, and of course, sleep well.